Hi everyone, I am Jonlyn from Creepingforscalemodes.com, and you're listening to The Model Philosopher.
Hello, hello, NHIO. It's the web shop you need to know.
The web shop everybody needs to know. NHIO, it's the web shop.
Web shop you need to know. Tools, decals, files, and much more. Tools and decals, files, and much more. So don't lose time and visit the store. Visit the store. NHIO, NHIO.
NHIO.
Party. Spend $50 or if you like even more to enjoy free shipping, free gift of your choice. To enjoy free shipping and free gift of your choice.
Free gift of your choice. NHIO. NHIO. NHIO.
Welcome to this episode of The Model Philosopher. Before we get into this episode, I would like to tell you about an exciting event from our sponsor, Scale Model Challenge. Scale Model Challenge is more than a show, and as part of their commitment to making the difference, they run the SMC Academy, events that allow modelers to attend workshops with leading artists from around the world. Their latest event is a weekend workshop with Robert Carlson from Sweden. Robert started out working with the legendary Mike McVeigh and has been a professional painter for 10 years, completing box art for games and miniature companies, and winning awards at shows like SMC, Contrast, Monte Sansovino, and many more. I had the opportunity to lay out his entry in the free SMC magazine this year, and it is truly beautiful work. If you would like to attend this 2-day weekend workshop in Eindhoven, Netherlands with Robert, you can find more details at scalemodelchallenge.com. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at breaking the rules, sidestepping convention, and moving away from the assumed purpose and accepted styles of modelling. My guest this episode is Jonlyn Lippert, aka Creepingforscalemodels. Jonlyn does not care about the conventions of modelling, seeing models only as a basic physical starting point, fuel pellets for her creative engine, rather than a three-dimensional puzzle to be assembled and painted to match a real item or TV property. Let's hear from Jonlyn now. Welcome, Jonlyn, to The Model Philosopher.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate you coming on. I think you'll probably be someone who's a bit new to many of the listeners, because a lot of the listeners to this show are kind of traditional historical scale modelers or figure painters. So before we start, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey in scale modeling?
I'm Jonlyn, and I'm an American-based scale modeler, and I'm going to kind of put scale modeler in a quotation because I don't really consider myself a scale modeler. And I actually didn't get into the hobby on purpose. So, it was, I want to say, a couple months out of high school, I went looking in a hobby store for Pacific Rim figurines. It's like a 2010, 2012 sci-fi with like giant robots. Has Ron Perlman in it. Cause at that point I had recently lost my brother, so my mom was trying to find me hobbies. And I walked into the store and I looked at the owner and I'm like, do you have any Pacific Rim stuff? He's like, it could be in that area, and he pointed to a vague location. And I'm looking around and I see all these boxes. And I'm like, oh, robot figurines. That's cool. Because I love my knickknacks. And I bought one and I took it home and I opened it up and I'm like, why are all these on a single sheet? Why is this not fully put together? And so I spent some time on Google and I'm like, oh man, you gotta build these. And so I hunted down what I could use for a nipper. I think I used a pair of scissors. And I got to the end and I'm like, that wasn't that bad. Because I think it was an iron blooded orphan kit.
Hmm.
So I went back the next week after to pick up some Hellboy comics. And the store owner was telling me, he's like, no, we got a ton of them. So I went back, I got a couple more, rinse and repeat until I discovered Haros. And then that just kind of kicked off the whole chain, and now it's 7 years later. And yeah, no, that's kind of my scale modeling journey. It just phases really. Snap builder, then a couple months in I started hand painting. And then a couple months after that, I think I met Julio. And he's like, do you have an airbrush? I'm like, I don't got an airbrush yet. A couple days later off of Amazon I had an airbrush. And then it slowly evolved to hand painting, airbrushing, and by accident I discovered the goop. The for listeners, I do a lot of abstract builds, so they're very goopy, very viscous looking builds. Um, and I had used the Mod Podge magic just to see if I could fill in like a hole in the seam or whatever. And then I'm like, oh wait, no, I like this texture. And then I just started building onto the Haro with it. And I'm like, I don't want to spray paint it because I don't think the colors would be that vibrant. Not like you can get with the rattle can. So I raided my dad's spray paint collection because he does HVAC and trade, so he has like yellows and stuff to mark his tools with.
Right.
So I just grabbed those and I went at it, and I'm like, this is how I'm gonna be doing my models probably for the rest of the time.
Well, this
And
is how I came to know you, because I joined Instagram a couple of years ago, very late to the party because I'm very old and old people use
you're
Facebook like me.
you're not missing anything.
I don't know, actually. I found a lot of interesting creators on there, and also it very much broadened what I was looking at. Rather than traditional historical scale models, I started looking at more fantasy models and more mecha and stuff like that, and also artists and ceramicists and things as well, because there's a lot of creative people on there. But that's the first thing I saw was the Harrows you were doing with the well, goop all over them and stuff like that. And it was really immediately interesting to me because a lot of other people, when they get a model, they look at the box or they look at the show, maybe with Gunpla, or they look at a history book with a tank or what have you, and they go, okay, I'm going to build the tank, and they build the tank and they paint it like the tank looks, and that's it, and then they do the next one. But you take something that comes in the box and go, yeah, that's nice, but I'm going to chuck this stuff on it, and I'm going to dip it in paint, and I'm going to mix lots of bits of paint in a pot and then dip it in and see how it comes out. How did you come to approach making models in that way?
I've never been normal. And I really don't care for accuracy. Even when I was younger, and because I went to free low income public art lessons that my home city used to offer. Even traditional back then, I wasn't interested in like oil painting, traditional media making, and like I like gunpla. I really don't care for the shows. I've seen them. They're nice. But I've always been one to do kind of whatever I wanted with my models. Like, don't get me wrong, I build my tanks. Not a lot anymore, but like I build my tanks and I tried to make them accurate. But I don't know, I think there's something about giant space robots that just lends itself to doing whatever the hell you want with it. Because people are like, that's not accurate. And I'm like, I don't see a 120-foot giant robot standing in front of me, so technically it's not really accurate.
Yeah, it's fantasy. It can't be accurate.
Like, they're canvases. That's all they are. And I can understand if people don't want to do that with their canvases, if they just want to make it show accurate. But I just like the idea of doing what I want with it.
Something I've never understood is when people look at a kit and then they see the way someone else deals with the kit and they get upset because the other person's doing something the way they wouldn't do it. Because it's not like you're using their kit, you're using your own one you bought. So I don't really see how it matters. But do you find you get a lot of pushback for doing the goop and for doing stuff you do on them?
That's funny. I don't get as much anymore,
Hmm.
but occasionally, like, I got this comment, like, last night and get, like, posted. Somebody said, I have to wait 8 months to get a kit, but this person can do this with theirs. And I'm like, my guy, my dude, shut
Yeah, that's
up.
how it works.
Well, like, in the beginning, oh my god. People were so upset, and I'm like, why? Why are you getting this mad? What's it doing to you? I'm not in your house. I'm not like breaking and gooping on your models. I'm in my own home most of the time. But nowadays, I think, especially with more people coming into the hobby, because there really has been a boom lately, especially as like anime becomes further mainstreamed. Mech anime
Hmm.
right now is really popular, especially with the new Gundam show they announced. People are just coming in and doing what they want with it.
Do you said something interesting earlier? You said it was a canvas. Is that how you approach all of it? That it's just a starting point and you can do what you want with it?
Um, yeah, especially in like the current models, they've kind of approached a canvas kind of storytelling to me. I do a lot of world building with my models, especially the newer ones, because I was reading a book called Annihilation. And if any of you are on my social media, you'll see me yap about this book all the damn time.
All right,
Um,
I'm going to appear illiterate now. Is that the one the film's based
yes, but
on? Okay,
loosely based on because a lot of what happened in the film doesn't happen in the book.
inspired by in heavy air quotes.
They just waved the book over the script back for them.
Okay, the book's great. We've bought the name. Let's do what the hell we want with it.
Like I love the movie too, don't get me wrong, but I love the
Yeah.
book better. And so I'm like, what if I could just tell my own little story in
Mm.
my models because I write for the blog and then I do my own little novels and stuff. But for something so helpful about having these current projects going, where I can kind of see where the story's going. Like there's a story behind the goop. There wasn't initially, but then I started like working on it and I'm like, ah man, now I can do dioramas and
What's the
show
story?
the story. So it's kind of it's really based off of hive minds, like
Mm.
the picture kind of like the thing, but a hive mind that really just kind of is out to vibe. It doesn't really want to. It doesn't care for needs and wants of other species. It's a very sci-fi heavy one. I've slowly been working on the page for it in the website. I gotta work on it some more because I haven't uploaded a little bit of information for it. But I have one project right now where it's I got the other day the Gundam hanger kits you can buy to like display your Gundams in.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I got that one and I'm kind of building like an intruder to like one of the hives.
Mm.
So it's the head of one of my kits that I kind of turned into the spider from the thing, you know, the spider head. I turned it into that and I'm like, that's going to be like an opposing force. It's hard to explain verbally because I don't talk about it very often.
It's funny how you can have kind of narratives and ideas in your head which seem entirely coherent and fully thought out. And you work based on that, and then you have to explain it to someone, and it's like, well, this is thing, and the thing's the thing, and then another thing happens. It's really hard sometimes to put these into words.
Like I'll be telling like Julio and the guys, and I'm like, yeah, so this happens, and then all of this happens, and they're like, what? And it all makes sense to me, but when somebody else listens to it, it's like watching one of those film recapped YouTube videos where it's the
Mm.
AI voice, and they're like, so this happened and this happened, and yeah, it's
It's like we kind of have a mental, emotional shorthand for these stories until we have to tell them, and then you realise that a lot of it is personal to you and how you think about it, as much as it is about the details of it.
oh yeah, it's really personal because like I've been world building since I want to say I was in eighth grade,
Mm.
which would be around 14 years old in American standards. So just being able to do this and tell it for a model It's intimate, you know.
Why do you think you do the world building? Why do you think you started or carried on?
For this one specifically, it kind of came to life one day. I was sitting there and I was working on it, and I'm like, you know what would be real funny? A hive mind that left everything with very pretty colors.
Mm.
And because I was watching the thing, because once a year when we get the heavy snowstorms in New England, well, not really much this year, it's all rain. Um, I'll rewatch the thing, and I was snapping up something, and I had started to goop it, and I'm watching the thing, and I'm doing it, and I'm like, oh, this would be really neat, and it just kind of grew from there.
It's a great film, though. The Thing. It's
I love it.
for me, it's one of the few nearly perfect films.
They they just remastered the video game for it, so I gotta check that
Oh,
out
I
one
might
of
have to
these
get
days.
that. I tried that years ago. It was very. It caught the atmosphere really well.
It does fall into some sci-fi tropes
Mm.
that I'm not too fond of, like evil government lab, and I'm like,
Oh yeah.
that's normal enough. That's not really a.
Yeah, it gets kind of boring when it drops into tropes though, because it's like it's almost a bit lazy with the storytelling.
Hmm.
Do you think? I mean, you do a lot of different hobbies. Do you think it's more a fact of you have a lot of creativity and you need to find an outlet for it?
Oh, absolutely. Like being like a neurodivergent content doer and whatnot. It's if I don't do something, I will end up getting into a very moody rut. Like I have to work on something just to like process my week and crap. Because if I don't, I'll be sitting there and I'll be getting like frustratedly angry over nothing. It's good for the mental health
Mm.
to have an outlet for my creativity. Because if not, I'll sit there and I'll think of a bunch of stuff that if I don't work on it now, will never get done.
Do you find if you sometimes when you have ideas, if you don't make something with them quickly, they get lost,
Oh,
forgotten,
absolutely.
because there's a constant kind of flood of ideas.
I have a notebook that, for the most part, this is like a recent thing, I've been writing down ideas on.
Mm.
Just because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in my brain idea wise. One of my friends on Instagram, she just sent me a whole box worth of filament poop. For some of those unfamiliar with 3D printers, filament poop is the little strands that get extruded out the nozzle before the printing starts. It's not normal. It's not poop. It's just called filament poop. I've been sorting it out by color, and I'm like, oh, you know what would be really cool to use this on? And then I just go and I jot it down. And then it's also still a 50-50 if I work on it.
What do you think you'll use it for?
So I've been getting into 40K, and by getting
Mm.
in, I already have a functioning army. um, I might use it to build terrain, like alien terrain for the Tyranids.
More hive minds.
I love hive minds. You gotta love
Yeah.
them. Um, I might you. I'll probably most likely use them on some of the dioramas, especially for like the goopy builds. Just to get the textures in, because it's very
Mm.
easy to lay them all down and just go over them with the 3D pen, and then take like whatever heat source I have to smooth them out.
Right. So, how much heat do you need to melt the stuff?
Not a lot.
I mean, I presume you're not melting it. You're just kind of softening it and letting it, like you said,
Yes.
smooth out.
You can do it with a soldering iron, like a low temp soldering
Mm.
iron, wood burning tips. I am interested in trying an idea with some of the filament poop, but I need like a normal old iron for it, and I don't
Right.
have one.
What, like clothes iron?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm gonna try and lay them out between two pieces of parchment, and then just kind of try and flatten them out with the iron. I don't know if it can actually work, because I've been playing around with the concept of gourmet Haros, dessert
Right.
Haros, and I just kind of want to make them. I don't want to say ridiculous because people work very hard on these dessert Haros, on these like desserts, but sometimes it's just a little too much, and I want to replicate that. So I've been trying to like figure out how to do so. Um, because one thing I tried a while back was with the hot glue gun. If you take like an air pressurized air and you let the hot glue drip, you can create like little tiny webs and stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I can use that. I can paint it like a caramel color. Now I got caramel, but now I need all the other weird stuff that comes along with this.
I think there's going to be, for listeners, you should definitely check out the show notes for this episode and also the blog version that will come out about a week after this goes out as a podcast, because there's a lot of things coming up that I don't know. There's going to be photos of, I just had to Google Dessert Haros and stuff just so people can follow along. But something I'm really always excited by with your work, and it's come up there when you're talking about ironing the stuff between two sheets. You're really interested, it seems, in the material properties of materials.
Yeah, I love trying to like figure out how I can use things.
Mm.
Part of it comes from I feel bad how much waste I put out with this hobby at times. Cause like you snap up a whole like kit or you snap up an army worth of Warhammer and you have all this plastic left over. And we don't have any not every recycling center can take the kind of plastic the kits I made from. So if you have one close to you, that's great. I don't have anybody close to me.
No, they don't take it in my city at all. Not polystyrene.
Just trying to like reuse whatever I can. Like I'll use paint scraps. I'll keep it in a little container. I'll chuck them in there. I'll use bubble wrap to get textures. Something that I can use so I don't feel bad if I have to throw it away in the end and I
Right.
can't recycle it. And then it's just kind of boundary pushing to see just if I can. Because trust me, not everything works out.
No, but people don't usually even try. So there's lots of opportunities out there for new things, new materials, new techniques, new happy accidents that people never find because they're kind of people gatekeep themselves in terms of what they can do and how they can do.
I also think people kind of get, I don't want to say stagnant,
Mm.
but they get comfortable. And
Yeah,
you know, sometimes people just don't want to do something, and that's understandable. Like, I know people who are like, I really don't care for doing much to a kit besides snapping it up. And that's valid, I get it.
yeah.
But I want to do a lot more to these kits. There's kind of it's kind of fun to make a Haru the least recognizable Haru you can find where people are like, that's not a Haru, and I'm like, well, technically it is.
It is somewhere under there.
Trust me,
It,
first up and
it
under.
was when I bought it.
Like,
For people that don't know, what is a harrow?
Haru is, I don't know what scale they are. I don't think they actually list a scale.
Mm.
They're like a little gumball shaped, jaw dropper shaped robot from the show Mobile Suit Gundam. They're not like jaw dropper shape in like the show wise. They're like the size of a basketball. Because I have a 1-to-1 scale next to me.
Oh,
But
right. So they're supposed to be kind of basketball sized.
yeah, I'd say it's a basketball. But the model kits themselves are like the big jawbreaker size. And they're round. And they do have like little ear flaps where like the arms come out, but I don't do
Mm.
that. Just because I like the shape of them without any like the arms and the legs.
It's interesting how you try and make them unrecognizable because they are basically an extremely simple, incredibly instantly recognizable shape, aren't they? The design is, once you know what one looks like, you would think there's not many ways you could hide that.
Yeah, I mean they're just it's just a couple ear flaps, a seam line, and then two little eyes. And that's
And
it.
two little round feet maybe that pop out the bottom.
Hmm.
But it all fits in. It's all supposed to fit into closed into a ball shape, basically, isn't it? That's it.
Oh yeah.
And the
It,
funny little mouth that goes around it.
it's just a little guy. But they're flat and they're blank, and I'm like, there's no difference between that and putting it on a canvas. Because
Yeah,
honestly, sometimes with canvas prices, it's the same damn price.
yeah.
Except I can't find them anymore. Because for viewers who don't know, I have bought over 100 Haros.
Uh,
I
do you
don't
think,
own them all
do you think there's
now.
someone at Bandai in Japan? This is really weird. There's like hundreds of these things going out the door in one city.
Like, I think somebody said that Bandai might have put a temp hold on making them because I
Yeah.
haven't been able to find any of them. Like, um, one of my friends in Australia runs a model shop, Mars Wind Factor on Instagram.
Oh yeah.
She has a bunch, and she's like, "Well, I can send it to you, but I don't want to pay Australian shipping prices to the
Ooh, no,
states."
no. You're looking at a lot of money there. You could buy a lot of Haros for the cost of the shipping if you could find
And
them.
so I just kind of, because I'm like an hour away from Gundam Pros
Right.
in Massachusetts. So occasionally I'll keep an eye out on the websites and like how the stores will post like inventory pictures, and if I see a Haro, it's on site. I'll go on, I'll buy it, but I haven't been able to find any, and it's like a bummer.
Well, I think nothing stays in production forever, and they usually rest things, don't they, for a while they produce other things and then come back to it. So you must be in the dark time when there's no Haros in production.
I mean, I'm hoping with the new show because they just brought out a Haro that has a beanie on.
Mm,
So I'm like,
that's
all
it.
right, Haros 2025, let's go.
You mentioned you do printing. Do you do 3D design as well?
I've tried. I've tried
Okay.
very hard to do 3D design because a while back, Brian and I, Bro Builder on Instagram, were talking, and he's like, you could always sculpt your own toys and stuff because I like independent toy making. So like people make their own little minifigures, and so I bought some monster clay, which is some real nice
Good
sculpting
stuff.
clay, and I kind of made my little dudes, and then I learned how to make the silicone molds, resin cast. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, one of these days I'm going to get a 3D printing program and I'm going to learn how to design these. And I've tried. I am not
I,
gifted in this area.
some things are harder than others. I mean, mechanical stuff in something like Fusion is really, I think, pretty easy coming from the point of someone who does it. But the soft stuff like figures and stuff, to me, it's a dark art. I'm sure there'll be people out there that go, "Yeah, I sculpt figures and it's really easy," but for me, it's not. And the decent programs that let you do it well are very expensive.
Um, what program do I use? Hold on. I wonder if I could find it. Blender.
Oh, Blender, yeah, it's horrible. I hate it.
Like I have a friend who goes on and he's like, yeah, no. And he goes and he does whatever toy he's making in like an hour or two, and I'm like, magic.
I'm still poking a
Wizardry.
cube trying to turn it into a ball.
I did make one figure, and I have to send you a picture when it's done because it is so cursed.
At least it's an actual figure. That's quite an achievement.
Um, but yeah, no, that's an art form lost on me. I'll take whatever files people have, and I'm like, oh, I'll print them out that way, but I might have to shovel out the pocket money and have somebody else sculpt them for me.
It's a time consuming thing as well. I mean, if you enjoy being at the bench working on stuff and making stuff with your hands, I've gone from doing that with most of my time and then doing some publishing stuff for a couple hours a day to basically spending most of my day designing 3D and then spending an hour or two building it at the end. It's very, it's a big time suck. It's not what you're into. It can be a real, imposition on your free time.
Like, I like learning new things, but then like I'll get halfway through it and I'm like, this is not my bread and butter. I do not enjoy this.
You have to kind of click with it, don't you? If you know what I mean.
Hmm.
You don't have to be good at it, but usually when you're learning a new skill, you can get to the point where you know whether it's going to be something you're going to enjoy learning or whether it's going to be a slog.
I've tried many things throughout the years. Just because like I was one of those kids and teens who constantly jumped from hobby to hobby.
Mm,
Like when I started Gunpla, my mom's like, "Where are you gonna put all these? Where are you gonna put all these robots?" She's like, "You're gonna be done with it in like 4 months." And I'm like, "No, I think this is different." So it's 7 years later. The hyperfixation never ended. Like I've slowed down because again, I work 40 plus hours a week, and my last job kind of drained whatever motivation I had in my body out of me. Because before this one, I used to work security,
Right.
and so I'd work like 50 plus hours a week.
Physical security or
Both.
cyber security or.
Just physical and the occasional having to look to see what the hell people are trying to scam off their credit cards.
Oof. What joy. What fun.
And so, like, I'm trying to get back into working on things. So, like, I'll get home, and I'm like,
Hmm.
I'll be on the way home. I'm gonna work on so much stuff, and then I get home, and I'm like, I'm going to bed.
Yeah, yeah. It's you do need a certain amount of energy for it, don't you? I mean, although the creativity mentally never stops, the sort of ability to turn it into something, you do need a certain amount of energy for.
Yeah, because especially if I'm tired, all my ideas will vanish into thin air, and then I'll wake up and I'll be like, I had all these ideas. Why didn't I work on it?
What do you think creativity is? Nice, nice softball question for you.
This is gonna sound real corny. I think it's the human spirit.
Hmm.
I mean, because how do I phrase this? Sometimes animals get creative. Like you see, like orangutan stealing tools. You'll see all that. But for something adherently human to create something and be creative, I don't think. I just like when people say I'm not a creative person. Because you are, you can be. You just have to kind of gaslight your own brain into it.
I think it's kind of a muscle, isn't it? That if you use it a lot, it becomes very developed, and if you never use it, it kind of atrophies. But it's still there.
Hmm. Like, I've kind of like, some people I've talked to, they're like, I'm not creative,
Mhm.
but they really don't do anything creative in the first place. Like, they'll sit down, they'll watch TV and stuff, and they don't really foster that mindset. Like, there's nothing wrong with watching TV. I do it from time to time, but you have to kind of nurture the instincts, whether it be, you know, trying something new. Even if you're terrible at drawing, just do it anyways. You gotta foster it to have it.
That's another one. Terrible at drawing. I don't know that anyone is. What they think is the terrible is the gap between what they can do and what they think it should look like.
It's just practice. I mean,
Mm.
I know some people have gotten real, like, miffed at PewDiePie, because I think he's learning how to draw.
Right.
And he's like, I just sat down every day and I just started drawing, and, like, you see the huge improvements in them. I mean, granted, I'm not a millionaire YouTuber, so I can't exactly sit down every day to draw. But just, like, 5 minutes out the day, do a doodle.
Yeah.
You can build up the muscle memories, and there's also been some studies, not a lot, but some studies that have talked about like hobbies and creativity being good for like heart health,
Mm.
swaying off things like Alzheimer's disease and all that. I'm not a medical professional. In fact, not where my education is, so I can't vouch for that.
We're not giving medical advice here, folks.
But some of my experience and degree training is psychological,
Mm.
so I can vouch on at least hobbies being good for the brain. So I think people need to kind of just nurture and just let that little creativity grow. It doesn't have to be all the time. 5 minutes a day, even like reading. Reading's a good way of doing it.
Yeah, because although people might not think it's creative, most people, I'm not going to say all people because I'm not let's call it neuroscientist either, but I think most people visualize when they're reading, or they think about what they're reading, and they do it in creative ways that they're not aware of. So certainly, if you're visualizing what you're reading, you're creating something from what are essentially just written words, on a page.
Yeah, granted, I've met people who say they can't visualize what they're reading,
Yeah, apparently there are some people who can't see pictures in their head.
which that's just a wild concept to me because my brain will hold a picture even if I wanted to or not.
Yeah.
The mental images always haunt me.
Yeah, do you find as well they come from nowhere, that you might be not particularly thinking about anything, and then you'll visualize something that just kind of, pops out of nowhere?
I hate it when that happens, especially if
Yeah.
it's like something embarrassing I did like 13 years ago, and I'm like, why are we
Oh,
doing
yeah.
this today?
Yeah, the old intrusive anxiety thoughts. Yeah.
But like I get that, but like mental image wise, so I get a picture of the scene in my head, and I'm like, nope, we're not doing that today.
This wasn't where I intended to go with this interview, so I can cut this bit if you like. But I'm actually in therapy at the moment for anxiety, depression, and something I've talked about with my therapist. One of the big issues I have is I have a constant chain reaction brain that I can be thinking about one thing, and it leads me to think another thing and another thing and another thing and another thing, and things that would seem to be unrelated. It would just lead me on this journey, but it's constant all the time. That my brain is constantly making associations and thinking about new things. Is that something you get as well?
Um, yeah, unfortunately,
Because I think it's tied to creativity, to be honest.
I I'm a real creature of anxiety.
Yeah,
And like it's terrible because when people text me, I have a hard time sometimes understanding the mood of a text.
yeah.
So that's why I constantly use like emojis and smiley faces. Like if anybody ever texts me, I'll do like the little smiley face or like a frown face, just because I need people to know how I'm feeling. Because I don't know what the hell's going on half the time. But yeah,
Because the
no.
text alone doesn't communicate the full thing, does it? The full sort of intent and feeling of what you're trying to say.
But no, like I'll go from, oh, I did this at work today. I hope nobody got mad at me, all the way up to what if everyone hates me?
Yeah.
I'm not in therapy yet. I have been looking. It just we don't have a lot of therapists around me.
I had to wait 18 months because I got it on the National Health Service. But although it's free, it's yeah, there's a huge waiting list. I think provision is bad everywhere, whether you pay for it or not.
We all know how the American insurance system is right now,
Yeah.
um, so it's just trying to find one that my insurance takes and in my area in general, because like I don't drive.
Yeah, no, I do mine online actually, which is maybe a good possibility to look into. You know, we do Zoom basically.
But yeah, no, especially like after my brother passed, like the hobby's
Mm,
been a huge help because I'll get in my head way too much.
yeah,
And when I just build, it's head empty, no thoughts, except where can I put this goop? How can I goop it? And that's just kind of a lovely little thing.
it goes back to something you said earlier about hyper focus. That's something I really identify with. I flit from one thing to another and really focus on it, like to the almost exclusion of anything else.
I'll forget to eat. If I get really in the zone with my building, I'll forget to eat.
I usually miss lunch because of that. Because by the time I look up, it's gone lunchtime because I'm working or what have you. But I think it is going back to how I brought this in. I think the creativity is related to it. I'm not sure if it helps sort of nurture the creativity, but I think the creativity, for good and bad, is a very powerful input into it. I think it helps you make those associations that you don't want to associate, you know, when your mind goes off on a spiral. But at the same time, it helps you find ways to cope with it, to, like you say, to sort of shut it out by focusing on something else.
I do definitely think there's a link, even if it's not a very strong one, to like creativity and anxiety and like other things of that spectrum. Because you look at like famous artists and then you hear like Van Gogh and you're like, yeah, I can see it.
Mm.
Granted, old school painters went crazy half the time because of the materials in the paint. But that's
Stop,
besides the
lick,
point.
stop licking the lead out of that paint.
For brush lookers out there, be kind that you're not, licking paint from like the 1880s or whatever. Nobody wants
Mm.
mercury, mummies, and all that. But no, I definitely, they used to eat it, and I'm like, why? Cannibalism, but a different flavor.
Yeah, it's all right. It's old. It doesn't count.
But no, I definitely, at least for me, I think there's a link to my creativity and anxiety. Cause it's gonna sound bad. When you see me pumping out builds left and right, I am probably not having a good time mentally.
Mm.
Because somebody's like, how can you put out 5 or 6 Haros a week? Well, you see, it's called a panic attack and anxiety attack.
Yeah,
But, like, I've been doing pretty good this year, and so I haven't really worked on a lot of things. This isn't therapy, but I do consider it a form of coping. to an extent.
I think as well, it's definitely coping because, like you said earlier, I can identify with that. That you can kind of forget the voices and the and the recurring thoughts and stuff while you're working. Usually, while you're working on something. I mean, sometimes it's so bad they come in anyway and you can't focus. But most of the time, you can kind of forget them for a little bit because you're working on something and you're problem solving and you're being creative and you're enjoying the process and everything else. But at the same time, I think it becomes a kind of conditioned response that when you're feeling low, you try and make things because you try to sort of work your way out of it.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely like me, and to the extent it works sometimes. Um, this time of the year though is unfortunately I can't just creativity my way out of it because the holidays are always very rough for me.
Yeah,
So like I'll delve as deep as I can in something just to try and work it out, but the big old yikes for me it not work. But yeah, no, there's. I think you can also like Pavlov yourself too, where it's like, yeah, no, you're building something out of fun, and then your brain's like, hey, we're gonna be sad right now, just cause.
yeah, and you're going to deal with it.
I didn't sign up for this. Oh, but your brain said you did.
I'm in charge now. You have to laugh, you know what I mean? Because it's kind of how it is, isn't it? And no matter how you try and think yourself out of it, your brain's going, yeah, but all the time.
If you don't laugh at your trauma, who will?
You have to, because otherwise you have to sort of,
You
just
go.
accept it at face value, and you can't do that.
It's gonna sound bad, but sometimes I'll make a joke, and my friend group will be like, "What?" And I'm like, "Oh, I can't joke about that kind of trauma." Like I have to, but I do think just like creating it and working on something has definitely done something to my mental health. The hyperfixations for long periods of time on a project I can definitely do without most days.
Yeah, they can be difficult as well because you can become obsessed with a subject and it becomes quite expensive.
Like I'll hate it because I'll start working on a project at like 11 in the morning, and then I woke up at 1:30 and I have to start getting ready for work, and I get upset because I don't want to go to work. I want to stay here and work on it, and then I'll
It's
go to
hard when
work.
you're really in the flow, because you get to that point, don't you, when you're working where it's just flying, it's going so good, and then you have to stop.
And for me, when I go to work, just because of how my brain works, it's all I can think about is going home and working on it, and then I get home and I'm tired.
Yeah, because you're fixated, like you say, you're hyperfixated, aren't you? So you're sort of counting the hours to go back and carry on because you've been interrupted from your holy crusade to finish the project.
And then I'll be sitting at work and I'll be thinking of it. I'll be coming up with ideas, but I don't have a way to
Hmm.
write these ideas down at work because my boss will be coming around and she'll stop and she's like, "What you doing?"
What's this? Yeah.
I'm like, "Don't mind me. I'm actually getting things done. Believe it or not." It's just like she came around because the person I work next to, we were talking about Beyblades.
Hmm.
She's like, "You guys have been talking about Beyblades for like 10 minutes. What's so interesting about it?" And then I have, for those who you don't know, Beyblades is like a competitive spinning top game
Hmm.
where it's kind of like Dreidel, but it's not like Dreidel. But then I'm like, no, but you don't understand. There's competitive Beyblades, and they have a ban list now. And so it's that, but like all the time until I get home and I can work on it.
Now you also do something really interesting. Slight change of subject, sorry, but trust me. You do something on Instagram, the hobby confessions, anonymous hobby confessions. Can you tell us about those?
So I was. It started off kind of as a brain idea, because at that point, I think the website was 2 years old at that point, because we're hitting the 1 year anniversary of them pretty soon. And I was talking to one of my buddies, and I'm like, I wanna come up with something fun to do that everybody can do like once a day. And I thought about maybe a daily question,
Hmm.
but I'm like, no, because then unfortunately I start like this was the same time I started seeing a lot of very rude individuals pop up in the hobby again. I'm like, what if I do something that allows people to vent, but it can be like a silly confession, like I drink my paint water, which I we had that come up a while back. Don't drink your paint water, people, please. To very serious confessions. I don't know how deep you want to get into it on this podcast. I don't know the rating of the show, but no, I've gotten very heavy topics. Like
Hmm.
I've had people talk about like childhood trauma they experienced. I got one that was like, I don't think I could ever feel like I'm glad the person vented it, but I
Yeah.
would never feel comfortable openly showing people this just because Instagram would nuke my account in a heartbeat.
There's kind of a, I think there's a tone that's suitable for it as well. And while you obviously wouldn't want to censor people in what they write in, do you, I suppose censor isn't the word, but are you selective about what you put out, if you see what I mean, what you
There
post?
are things I do kind of sort through. So it's a Google Doc, it's a Google form. Um,
Hmm.
so the only thing I get when people submit it is what they wrote and the
Yeah.
time it was submitted
So no
and the
name,
date.
no,
No
no,
name, no email, no nothing.
no IP address, nothing.
Nope. But like, there's things I will never post. Like, I've been getting a lot about female hobby builders this week, just because
Right.
that's an issue that's reoccurring again. Um,
Do you mean from female hobby builders or from male builders
from
about female?
it, I'm assuming for males about female hobby builders.
Okay.
Where it's policing what clothes they should be wearing, how they should be behaving, and I don't ever post that shit. It's too
I
in
think
show neckbeard for me to want to do.
the I don't think there's a single opinion about a woman's appearance that a man can have, to be honest, because it's not your business.
I just think some people get mad because a lot
Yeah.
of I don't think they're mad about the clothes. I think the fact that
Mm.
some of these like women just have better personalities, and so they gain a larger audience through the personalities.
It's the success they're
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's even jealousy because I don't know if these guys even want to be have big accounts or whatever on social media. They just resent the fact someone else is doing it.
Like, there's a woman who I don't have the username on the top of my head, but she builds scale models. The problem is she's
Mm.
also an underwear model.
Right.
So she'll post herself in what she actually physically models for
Mm.
magazines. And people are like, can you believe she's wearing it? And I'm like, well, yes, it's her job. She probably gets paid at a good premium to promote what she's wearing.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't know. It's things like that. Then it's just like dumb internet beef.
I was going to
Like,
say you've had some abuse, haven't you, from people?
oh yeah, I've had some people don't like the hobby confessions, which understand if it's not your bread and butter.
I don't understand it at all. I'll be honest. I mean, I don't understand the beef they've got.
Some people have gotten pretty mad at me for doing it. Just because, like, they bring up hobby drama from the past and stuff. Like, I'm not a perfect person, but I wasn't the same
Mm.
person I was 5 or 6 years ago when whatever bullshit happened. Half the time I don't even remember what it is. But they don't like the confessions because they think it's just, I don't know, causing a ruckus or whatever. I don't get it, but or they think these complaints or confessions are kind of null and void.
I follow them. They're pretty harmless. I don't, and maybe there's some beef there, hints I'm not picking up on, but they don't seem to be particularly antagonistic. I mean, some of them are a bit weird, but people are entitled to be weird, right?
People are like, why are they so negative? And I'm like, because half the time it's what I get. I post the
Yeah.
positive ones when I get them, but I mean, this is also to confess or vent. I'm gonna give people a space to do that because it's healthy. One thing I did like is I had one come in. Somebody's like, these confessions are disingenuous and aren't based on reality. And I'm like, a lot of people would disagree with you on that one, but carry on. Because then, like, I post ones where it's just like somebody's like, I get profiled for shoplifting, even though I didn't do anything
Yeah.
at a specific hobby store. And then he'll be like, I go to another hobby store and they're fine with me. And then, you get female builders talking about issues they've experienced in the hobby, and then you just get some weird ones. Like, I do cater into the not safe for work ones to an extent,
Yeah, those are the weird ones I was talking about.
but I do, like, put up a little warning, like, hey, this is not safe for work. Because sometimes it's just, if I have to read this, somebody else has to read this.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, you put up one so they have to swipe one out of the way to read it, don't they? So you're never going to see it by accident, if you see what I mean.
like we have somebody who's way too interested in Warhammer Necrons. Like,
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, yeah,
just
far too
occasionally
interesting.
drops in. But no, that's oh, I don't like it's. I don't even know how long I'll do the hobby confessions for. If
Mm.
it's for this year, if it's just for another year. Like, one day I might stop. Who knows? Um, but for right now, it's I get up in the morning, I check them, I post them, and it's a fun little routine for me. It's the longest running routine I've had because I am terrible with routines. Um, but yeah, no, it came off of a brainstorm idea, and I think it's fun. Like, I post them daily on the Instagram,
Yeah, I
and
follow it.
then
Yeah,
I don't post them
religiously. It's
daily on the blog. I'll group them up by
mm.
fifth batches of 15, and then I'll post them on the blog because it's a good way to interact with the community because you get people who comment on like every single one,
Yeah,
and then you get some of the spicier opinions. And people are like, no, I think you're stupid. And somebody's like, wait, no, I think you're right. There was one a while back. I'm forgetting which one. But there was quite a bit of, like, I had to step in and moderate. Because typically I let
yeah,
the
yeah.
comments go to where I don't really step in. Like, I'll reply and I'll like the comments or whatnot, but I do believe it just should be a talking open forum. But occasionally people start name calling, and I'm like, I will turn off the comments and I will block you both if you don't shut up.
Do you think people have a hair trigger on social media?
Oh, absolutely.
It seems to go from 0 to 100 in faster than a Ferrari most.
I feel like it's going to be ironic of me to say because I run a daily social media thing,
Mhm.
but I cut back my social media quite a bit just because if that hair trigger, like, I'll get dumb comments and I want to reply. I'll get people who are like, oh, this build is shit, or um, this idea is stupid. And I kind of want to do the, no, I think you're stupid. But I'm like, wait a
Yeah.
minute, no. And then I just end up blocking them. The block button has been my favorite buttons.
Oh, it's the best button on the internet. One of the side effects I was going to say of the focus, the hyperfocus, I think, is you can become too fixated on something someone said to you on the internet as well. And if you don't stop yourself, you can get sucked in so easily.
Yeah, especially like previous hobby friends that I no longer speak to.
Mm.
I'll think of something somebody said if it's really bad and it's really upset me. Like, even after, like, there's been apologies, it'll still stay in the back of my brain.
Yeah.
Which is like, if people don't gotta be mean on the internet. Like I tell people all the time, you don't like what I do, scroll, block me. Hell, block me if you want. I don't care. It doesn't make a difference.
I mean, I don't really understand why you get so much trouble. Do you think I've observed this as well? So it feels like female posters on the internet, or let's just face it, non-cis male posters on the internet, get a lot more pushback for things guys don't get pushback for.
So I do definitely agree. So for a long time I was gender anonymous on my
Hmm.
older Instagram. I have two Instagram accounts. I have a personal one. Well, not really personal. I post my like work in progresses on that one, and then I have the one for the blog. I was anonymous on it for a year or two, and people were like the nicest. And then I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm a chick, and they're like, hold up.
How dare you? How dare you be creative and do things?
And like, I'm one that has never really abided by gender norms.
Hmm.
Um, just because I think exploration of that is healthy. Um, but no, I think I blame Gamergate. I don't know
Right.
if you know what Gamergate is.
I'm aware of it. I'm not too up on it, I'll be honest.
For those of you who don't know, Gamergate was a whole it was an event that kind of caused a harassment campaign of women in, like, the gaming industry and all that. And I think the main thing it was based off of, like, somebody accused somebody of cheating or, doing whatever with the person. And I think it was proven to be wrong or whatnot. But it has definitely changed, more hostile in how women are treated on the internet. Like, it wasn't good before, but Gamergate really increased the intensity. Like, when I wrote an article about sexism in Gunpla and Warhammer, I caused quite a shit show on Twitter. Don't know if you were on Twitter at all, or I
I
followed you on
left a
Twitter.
couple of years ago. One of the reasons I left was the sheer level of misogyny that was becoming more and more just out in the open, just proud on the internet, basically. And Twitter was really bad for it.
Yeah, because when I wrote that article and I had posted it on Twitter, I didn't expect to get a lot of traction on it.
Yeah.
I figured it would have flown under the radar, but oh boy, did I make the Warhammer community mad at me.
Mm.
Because I got a lot of people like, no, I agree with this. And then I got a lot of people like, you're stupid. And then I got a lot of, like, hate messages in the DMs, which I think has helped strengthen me up to how I deal with it online now. Because, like, if I get a DM about somebody telling me to go F myself, it first block. I'm not even responding to you.
Yeah.
I had somebody get mad a while back because I always try and vouch who I follow back. Sometimes I'll mix a follow back or whatever. But I followed this by accident, and then I read the profile, and I'm like, oh, you're not somebody I
Ew.
want to associate with. So I unfollowed, and this guy threw a shit fit. And for like weeks, and I'm like, my guy, it's not that deep.
Yeah, I mean,
But no,
what
I
even is a
definitely.
follow on social media? It's not like you personally publicly insulted him. You just didn't follow him anymore.
It's definitely, and it gotten worse too. I think it's gotten worse over the last few years. Because I think we essentially entered Gamergate 2 with the current trend of whatever hell is going on with. I don't want to say young men because I've seen a lot of women get in on it too.
Yeah.
Because even like the sexism in the hobby posts, I had some women are like, well, I've never experienced it. And I'm like, good for you if you've never experienced it. But a lot of us have. Like, I don't know if you're aware of the Gunpla Girl gang.
No, although I might know some of the members.
It is like an LGBTQ plus women only space Discord.
Well, that'd be why I don't know about it. I'm none of those things. So,
And so when it happened, there was like this huge backlash of somebody like, what if we just made a male only Discord?
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, go for it. Nobody's stopping you, bud. But there is just this huge backlash. And I think it's quite silly getting mad over some of these things. Because they're
I
like, why can't
the
we have these spaces? And I'm like, you can. Go
the
for it.
thing I find really insidious about it is they don't really want those spaces.
Oh,
They just think they should have a say over whether you should have spaces, which is, it's not about them having what you have. It's about them wanting you to not have something. And that's insidious. That's creepy. And that's bad.
like, it hasn't happened lately, and I've been really happy with that. But the amount of, like, 5 years ago of genitalia pictures that a lot of the female builders, including myself, have gotten. And partially that was the motivator. We needed a space for, like, we wouldn't be shamed for, like, wearing a t-shirt that was too deep cut for somebody or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, I definitely think there's been there's been a difference when I was gender anonymous compared to nowadays.
I mean, this is why I wanted to bring it up, because I think most men are unaware. I don't know if they're unaware that it happens. It's not something they think about happening anyway, and it's certainly not something they ever experience. And I think it's really important for guys listening to understand that this is what people go through on the daily on the internet. in our modeling culture, basically.
So I had this interaction on a hobby confession about cosplaying. For
Mm.
those unaware, cosplaying is when you're basically creating the costume of a character and dressing up like the character. It's you see it a lot at like conventions, Comic Con, and all that. But a lot of these people would deal with gropers. They'll deal with people who don't understand the word no.
Yeah,
So there's this thing going around called cosplay isn't consent.
yeah,
And so I got a confession, somebody venting about how, you should really ask people to take their photos, which is polite. I wouldn't walk up to a stranger and take their pictures, but not everybody understands that concept. And this guy's like, well, don't dress up like that if you don't want the attention. And I'd already been pretty heated that day. So I kind of got into like an argument with him until I sat there and I realized I don't think this guy's ever going to understand this.
mm,
And I had a block because it wasn't worth my mental health and I didn't want any of my cosplaying friends getting upset.
yeah.
They don't understand half the time. And some of it I don't think is out of malice. I just think it's what some of them were like raised around or just general culture and whatever. Because some of them have changed their opinions. I've met people who are like really neck bearded, but once they started hanging out with actual people, they're like, oh no, I was cringe, something fierce.
Mm.
So like I'm always willing to like explain things to people. Like I had somebody reach out and they're like, "Hey, can I get context about what you posted on Bluesky? Cuz I'm unaware and uneducated on it." For those of you who don't know, Bluesky is like a new Twitter alternative.
It's like Twitter without the horrible stuff, basically. Although I've noticed a lot of the neckbeards and stuff have come over to try and troll it, basically.
That's why you get the block lists. I'm on so many of them that I just don't see these people half the time, and it's wonderful. But so sometimes when I explain it to them, they kind of understand what I'm getting at. But no, it's like I haven't had a lot of it lately in the hobby, just because I've kind of left. I don't post on Facebook anymore into the hobby groups, just because the Facebook hobby groups I think are some of the worst for it. Apologies to anybody who runs the Facebook hobby group.
I'm in
Um,
a few that are very good, but I'm very selective about which ones I'm in because of that.
Back where at least I got in some of the worst comments. And then I dixed Twitter about, I stopped using it a year ago, but I didn't want to close my account because imposters are a thing.
Yeah.
But then I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, anybody who knows me knows I won't be posting stupid shit like half the imposters do. So I ended up just fully deleting it, and now I'm on Bluesky and Instagram and Kara, which is an art based website. It's kind of like DeviantArt,
Hmm.
but again, I don't know how much better it is. I don't get it on it super often. And then occasionally I'll post on like the Gumpo Reddit, and that's about it. I have my own little Discord. I'm on a couple other Discords. I don't have to deal with the bombardment. Because if I do, I just block them now. It's wonderful.
It's funny. A lot of people have the attitude to blocking that you shouldn't do it because you should be open to hearing a plurality of voices, and
Oh
you don't want
no.
to be in an echo chamber. And I know people that have never blocked anyone. I block like it's going out of fashion. I'm blocking like they're taking the button away from me because life's too short to have to deal with things you don't want to deal with like that
I
with
like
with bad people.
I like the blue sky mentality of sometimes you just block to curate your feed.
Yeah,
Like sometimes I'll block people just because I don't like what they're doing. Not that I think they're a bad person. I just don't want to see their posts.
yeah, because the algorithm keeps throwing things back up at you, and sometimes stuff that you're not interested in just becomes really repetitive. So I'll block just to stop seeing it.
Like I don't get offended if people block me. I fully understand it. You
Yeah, I
should.
don't know, so it doesn't
I'm
matter.
on. I should post half the time, so
Hmm.
I'll be on a blue sky and I'm like, pay me to get rid of the ghosts in your house. I'll harass them until they And I know that annoys people, and I'm like, I don't mind. Block me. I'll block anybody. Like, annoyed me in a comment, block. Say something bad about whatever just because you want to be contrarian, block.
Mm.
It's the whole, I like pancakes, well, that must mean you hate waffles.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Yeah. The old straw man. Yeah.
And so that's really been helpful. And I mean, it's kind of sad that you have to do it, but that's the internet nowadays.
But if you're going to use social media, you have to curate it. Otherwise, it's either too much or it's too toxic. And the only way to deal with it is to be very, very selective about what you look at.
Well, I know NeoCities is kind of like a GeoCities alternative,
Mm.
um, which is like building your own websites. I know some people have guest books where people can leave comments, and I'm like, I'm not putting that on my website.
Just invite hassle.
Like, you can leave comments on my posts.
Yeah.
If you're rude, I'm not going to approve those comments. And it's great, because I don't have to deal with the crap after.
Now, I hate to cut this off, but we're running a bit short on time now. But you do have a lot of socials. Would you like to tell us what they are so that people can find you if you want to be found? And I will also put them in the show notes so people can go and look at your work.
So, predominantly, you can find me at creepingforscalemodels.com. It's where I post about my modeling. I post about other media like video games, Beyblades. Occasionally, you'll see a post where I say, 8 Pokemon that I would like to eat. And I do those. So
I have to say,
creepingforscalemodels.com.
I love those because any natural history program, when they got the animal on, I always think, well, I wonder what it would taste like.
Too many Pokemon are edible, and sometimes it's hard for me to make that list.
They look literally sweet.
It's an ice cream Pokemon. You can't tell me I can't eat that thing.
I mean, it's made to be eaten, surely.
And then on Instagram, I have 2 accounts. I have Creeping for Scale Models, which is where the hobby confessions get posted and where I post links to like the blog pages. And then I have Creeping Freely for You Too, which is where you'll see a lot of my like actual hobby stuff, like where I
Yeah.
post my work in progresses, where I post finished projects, and other things related to my life, like graduations and all that. And then,
Personal stuff.
yeah, then you'll see me on Bluesky under Creeping Freely for You Too. A lot of it is repetitive. So
Yeah, it's a
YouTube,
brand, isn't it?
it's Creeping Freely for You Too. And then I think that's it. I have a Facebook page for the blog, but again, it's Creeping for Scale Models. I don't really check on it that often.
Finally, I have to ask, why creeping freely?
So, that actually started from my Reddit account. So, I joined Reddit when I was in like 8th grade. Terrible developmental choice, people. Don't let your kids have free access to the internet. Because we had gotten a family computer and my parents weren't really concerned about monitoring. So I made a Reddit account. And they kept on like rejecting all the usernames. So finally I kind of did like the auto type whatever crap. And I'm like, oh yeah, this will stick. And then it's been that way ever since. And you see it slow evolve. So it's like Creeping Freely for You Love is my Reddit account. And then you have Creeping Freely for You and some of my older, no longer available accounts. And then it's Creeping Freely for You Too, which has then turned into Creeping for Scale Models.
It's an evolution.
It's a trend. It's a 10, 12-year history.
It's quite funny how something so offhand at the time, you just need a username and you get frustrated with not being able to use the ones you want. You're like, that'll do. Ends up being stuck with it for the rest,
Like, it's
for the
funny
rest of your
because
internet life.
now if I, like, just need, like, a gaming account for, like, whatever Steam
Yeah.
game I downloaded, it's like, it's Creep 99. All that jazz. It's really funny.
All right. Well, I hope people do go along and have a look at your work because I don't think there's any way we could describe it and do it justice. I'll get some photos off you later. I'll put those up with the Facebook and Instagram post when the blog is out, and also on the blog, so people can read a transcript of this and look at the photos while they're doing it, which is probably one of my favourite ways to consume it, certainly. And yeah, I hope people go and check it out. Also, people, be kind on the internet. It doesn't take
Yeah.
any extra effort.
It doesn't take much to be nice. I mean, look at Mr. Rogers, man. Don't disappoint him.
All right. Well, thank you, Jonlyn, for joining us today. I've really enjoyed this chat. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. This is honestly the best way I could have spent my morning today.
I think Jonlyn is fantastic. I've been a huge fan of her freestyle since I first joined Instagram. There are so few people in modelling that attempt to do anything different or original. It's not that you have to do either, really, but it's so refreshing to meet someone who does. It's telling how the community reacts when confronted with this, though. Jonlyn has faced pushback and criticism from people who either don't get it or don't want to. People who see deviation from the norms of their genre as an attack on them or their modelling, or some kind of personal insult. I can't pretend to understand the psychology of that, but it's fascinating and frustrating in equal measure, especially from a hobby that claims to call itself creative or even art at times. More frustrating is the reaction female and LGBTQ+ modelers get in the community. As a white male modeler myself, I've never had unsolicited inappropriate messages or been attacked for my identity when posting. There seems to be a presumption of my entitlement to do so, to have a presence in the community that somehow non-male modelers have to justify and earn, or can have challenged if some guy doesn't like them or resents their profile, however modest that may be. The thing that frustrates me most about this is that mostly people ignore it when they see it. If we as a community challenged it, we could change it. We have to challenge it wherever it arises if we want to make this a true community for all modelers. The more positive takeaway from Jonlyn's interview is the idea that creativity is not bounded by genre. You don't have to restrict it to how you weather a model or whether you put a tree next to it on a base. It can encompass more than your hobby, and your hobby can just be a part of it. Like Jonlyn, you could be a creative first and a modeler second if you really want to explore your creativity. Back to plastic, I've been inspired by Jonlyn and others like Mac McDougall and Jean-Andre, who I interviewed in episode 5 to break out of some conventions and internalised rules myself. Although I've never been a devout 100% adherent to realism in my modelling, I do think I've always tried to be realistic and referred to the real when building, painting and weathering my models. However, my background is in art, painting and printmaking, and although I left that behind when I graduated from college, I have been increasingly interested in bringing that back into my modelling and creative activity, so I decided to make something like that. I had a T62 Shelf Queen part built, so I quickly finished off the build and decided to paint it without any of the military or standard colours, and without any of the usual techniques I would use for painting and weathering, instead painting it how I would a canvas, based on the early 20th century expressionist style that I used to admire at art school. I used only strong primary colours to mix my colours for the model, with no desaturated colours at all, and only used secondary colour mixes, that is, mixes made from 2 primary colours only. If you don't know your primaries, these are red, blue and yellow, and the secondaries are orange, purple and green. I used no black and no white, other than a light grey marking. This restriction has led to some interesting colours and more interesting effects as the colours react to each other on the model. For instance, I have used purple for shadow and almost pure yellow for highlights in the green. I've also decided not to concern myself overly with blending or hiding brush marks, and have painted the whole thing with a hand brush, except an initial airbrush coat of primer. I showed it online and the initial response was that people try to fit it into a pre-existing box, such as modulation. On the one hand, this is frustrating, as it seems that modelers can only interpret something if it fits in with a style that they already understand. But on the other hand, it showed me that probably I was not pushing it enough to escape that impression, or to escape realism or artistic realism that I was looking to break out of. So I've since pushed the colours a lot further. You can never really escape realism without making something truly abstract, but modelers' definitions of realism and abstraction are vastly more conservative than the definitions used in art. so there is a great gulf between the two that we could play in as modelers if we choose to do so. I don't think this model is doing much that's actually new. I'm sure others have done this before and no doubt much better, but it's sure fun to try it for myself. And it's changing my practice and my ideas of colour and mark making hugely. The challenge now will be to put it into a fitting context by creating a diorama in a complementary style, and beyond that to find a way to make the form of the model as expressionistic as the painting. But that's a challenge for the future. Before we go, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Annie's and Scale Model Challenge, and I'd also like to thank the show patrons. You can support the show at patreon.com/themodelphilosopher, or you can leave a 5-star review on your podcast app of choice to help the show reach a larger audience. Remember, a week after this episode goes out, you can also read this as a blog, illustrated with images at modelphilosopher.com. In the meantime, if you want to see Jonlyn's work and some pictures of the work I'm working on, you can see them on the Facebook page of The Model Philosopher. Next time I'll be looking at the year in review. I hope you'll join me for that, and thanks as always for listening to The Model Philosopher.